Well, the first thing I learned about doing television in New York was that it was very different, sort of annoyingly different from doing comedy in radio. In radio, as you know, they actually had big signs on the wall that said "Quiet, please" and "Silence" in the hallways and stuff. Because all there was to radio was sound, they didn't want the sound of people hammering or a man practicing a trombone or anything, while Bob Hope or Jack Benny or Donald Duck are trying to get laughs. So the word was shh. So I had done this for a few years in radio comedy in LA, and I just unthinkingly assumed it would be that way in television, which I was beginning to do now in New York, but it wasn't. Um, I never was conscious, I shouldn't say never, rarely was consciously trying to get laughs from the people at home because I didn't know who they were. There were millions of them. How can you concentrate on them? You can't. That's why they bring in studio audiences. They give you 700 live people, and if you make them laugh, you're a hit. So I would concentrate on them, go out and talk to them, and ask a woman about her hat and whatever the heck happened. But now here was the problem. I'm trying to get laughs from these people, and first of all, there are 3 or 4 enormous cameras. The cameras then were twice as big as they are now, big things, and each one was pushed by a man, sometimes with a helper. So you have one big piece of machinery, 2 men shoving it around. Then there were the microphone booms, as they are called. And a microphone, these days they can hide one in your shirt, but in those days it was all the overhead things. And that was a great big platform with rubber wheels and a man on top of it and a man pushing that man. So you would have 8 or 9 technicians between you and the audience you're trying to entertain. Now imagine being on stage at Caesar's Palace or at the old Copacabana in New York. Let's suppose you're Myron Cohn, you're trying to get laughs, and suddenly 19 workmen are in front of you. It's very annoying. In fact, it annoyed the hell out of Fred Allen at the time. I remember him using the phrase, he said radio is nice and quiet for us. He said at television studios, these are his words, bloody commotion. And it would be nice if all the interruptions that took place involved only the workmen. But over to one side, you'd have 12 cute-looking chorus girls getting ready to do their next dance number. You'd have a producer lined up with the writers against the wall laughing it up. You'd have a band of 19 people behind them with the band leader going, talking to somebody on earphone. So there was all this buzz and mumble going on around you. And it's a wonder any of us got laughs those first few
How
years.
could you concentrate with something like that?
Well, I sometimes actually incorporated an acknowledgement of the problem along with my planned material, if I had planned any. And that's not a total negative, because some comedians are funniest when they're in trouble. And I'm in some ways in that category, and in some contexts I am in that category. If I'm doing my show and a waiter drops a tray of dishes, to me that's a plus. I can suddenly stop whatever I was doing and go out and interview the waiter, help him pick up the dishes, do something. I'll give you a specific instance. We jumped now back to LA when I was doing radio shows for the CBS network. We had a lovely singer, can't remember her name, sorry. And she was just about to do a number one day, and suddenly we heard bang, bang, really loud banging. I didn't know where it was coming from. We couldn't go on with the show that way, but it was rude to the singer with all this terrible noise going on. So I said, Eileen, I think was her name, I said, honey, wait for just a minute, I got to find out what that noise is and stop it. So I turned into a top sergeant. I said, ushers, would you please run to the door? By now I'd realized it was coming through double doors upstate. I said, open the doors, stop whatever the noise is so we can get on with the show, okay? They all said, yes, sir, and they ran to the door and they opened it. And at this point, the funniness started. There's an old man who turned out to have a rather heavy Italian accent with a cement mixer. He didn't know where he was. He was in the cement business, not the radio comedy business, So I had my hand mic with me, and I went out, and we were on there live over, 114 stations. And I said, sir, and he couldn't hear me because of the machine. I finally went like that, so he turned off. He said, what do you want? Like he's argumentative right away. And I said, sir, we're trying to do a show in here. Could you just stop? I said, we'll be off there in about 18 minutes. He says, no. And that's a funny answer if you're on the air live. So I don't remember the specifics of our conversation, but it was screams. I don't think the old man ever did figure out he was being heard all over America, and he was not very respectful. He was actually quite rude. He said, I got to be finished by 3:45. That was his angle on the whole thing. So from those instances, I realized that I could make profit, make pure gold out of stuff going wrong. Now, to do that, you have to have at least some degree of the gift of wit. If you have a stock act, you're in trouble if something goes wrong. But it worked out well.